Record Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
And so back in those days, licenses would come in the mail and you would sign it away and then later find out that your song that you wrote and demoed and promoted and played live is now on a record, but you're only getting how much? 25% now.
Yeah.
And 75% is going to 3 other entities, whether it's publishing, another writer. So you learn really quickly that, wow, if I'd been more careful, I probably could have had 50% of that song. But at some point, especially in a relationship with the Lord, you have to just let it go. And you go, hey, man, thank you. Gratefulness rules. Mm-hmm. So gratefulness is saying, I'm so thankful I had that moment. I'm so thankful that happened. I am not going to be bitter. I'm not going to wish that it was different. I just going to accept. And the Lord will bless that. And he did.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
If you weren't awake, you're awake now.
Who is that amazing artist? Wow, they're really good.
Who is that, man?
Dude, that's my first narrative. That's my first narrative inspired by Johnny Cash, by the way. Inspired by
really?
Johnny.
How so?
I have a house on the lake up in Hendersonville, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from where Johnny's house used to be. And one day I was thinking about him. I thought, I think I can do this. And I'm going to go for that little Johnny Cash talk that he used to do, the little voice that he used to kind of talk a little bit while he sang. I just loved him. So very cool. Fun. Yeah.
Well,
how
ladies
are you?
And gentlemen, I'm good. I'm good. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is the one, Mr. Sam Oliver Scott.
Thank you.
Songwriter, pianist, multi-instrumentalist, producer, arranger, you name it. He's
call me if you need some trumpet. Nobody's ever called me to play trumpet, but I'll do that too.
Oh, well, see, up until now, we didn't know you played trumpet.
Yeah, you didn't. You're going to learn something today. That's right.
Yeah, I'll scratch that off. Yeah, learn that one.
Sure. Sure.
How you doing, man?
Well, what can I... I'm good. I had a little bit of a work day. I was doing my tent maker job today, and I thought, shoot, I'm going to go by the house and get some iced tea and sit in my studio and talk to Aaron. So that's awesome.
And you got your iced tea?
Yeah, dude, I got it.
Cool. Sweet, unsweet, or half and half?
Unsweet, because I'm supposed to be on a diet, so I'm being a good boy.
Oh, good for you.
I'm being a good boy. Nothing like my Nashville days of drinking sweet tea morning, noon, and night. So,
are you working out, walking, or anything like that?
You know what? I'm supposed to be walking, but I'm having a little problem with some physical stuff on my heels. My heels bother me, so it makes it a little tough to walk. But we're going to get back in it here pretty soon. So,
cool.
All good.
Cool, man. Well, Sam, I'm glad you were able.
Yeah.
You getting old?
Yeah, getting old.
Yeah, we all do if we live long enough.
That's right. That's
right.
Yeah,
it's a sure thing. Well, I'm glad you you could hobble over to the radio show today.
I made it, and I'm happy.
Thanks
happily
for coming.
Sitting down.
Yeah,
thank you for having me, man.
Man, I'm so glad it worked out today. Today has been kind of hectic over here.
Yeah,
Just trying to work stuff out, and
yeah.
Everybody's not on my time frame, so
Yeah, I
It
got
takes
you,
a little
bro.
time to
I
get
got you.
through, but I'm glad you're here,
Yeah.
Sam. And we have played together a couple of times here in Nashville with Matthew Chapman.
Yeah, and you know what my funnest thing with you was, and I loved what we did that day, my dear, dear friend, who's one of my best friends in the world, John Foster, as well as Matthew Chapman and some of these guys, we got together with you and jammed one day at Matthew's house. We had the best time. It was really
it was
fun,
pretty
man.
cool.
Thanks for doing that.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Trying some different stuff. It was cool.
Yeah. So, Sam, tell us about yourself. Where were you born, and how did this all start?
Well, man, the Lord is so good. I don't know how in the world he pulls the strings he does, but I was born in the Red Hills of Alabama on the Chattahoochee River in 1954, and you would have thought a guy would never get out of there. Once you're born down there, you kind of stay there. No, my dad hit the road as a pastor and started taking, I call them gigs, where the church would say, hey, we need you to go here and build a church. So he would say yes. And we were in Alabama, then we went to Ohio, outside of Columbus. Then we ended up in California, and he built a church out here, and we stayed in California. That was 1959.
You're a PK, huh?
Yeah, I'm PK, but I'm a good PK. I wasn't rebellious. I was one of the ones that actually, down at the altar at 3 or 4 years old and stuck with it. Yeah, I'm good.
Wow.
Was not rebellious.
How old were you when all this happened? Now, it transpired. Your dad moving the family to California and all.
Yeah, so I was like 3 or 4 years old, and we headed to Ohio, and we left there when I was 5. So really, I didn't spend much time back in the South and the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I knew, I'm in LA, and it's sun shining, and it's music, and it's no rain and no snow, and it was a different world. I mean, buddy, I got up one morning and went, "Wow, what is this?" And I was only 5, but I thought, "Okay, this is good. Yeah, we can do this." and stayed here for years and years and years until I moved to Nashville in the 80s. So
why did you move to Nashville?
You know what? I had my first marriage. I had gotten married in '86, and my friend Kenny Marks called me and he said, "Hey, do you want to?" Kenny and I had been doing some things at Knott's Berry Farm and Disneyland, and whatever he had come up, I would put the band together. And I had a group of guys here that would all play with Kenny, and that included Jimmy Erickson, some of these guys that I worked with a lot. And he said, "You know what? We've been doing stuff in L.A." He said, "Would you like to join the band and move to Nashville?" I said, "You know what? We are thinking that could be really cool for us." So we moved to Nashville in '86 and stayed there for a long time, 12, 13 years.
Wow, man.
Yeah, and I was traveling with him at the time. So,
So tell me what was it like growing up in the home of a pastor?
Oh, so for me, really positive. I don't have anything negative to say about that. My dad was one of those rubber meets the road guys. He didn't put up with anything that was weird. He would talk to people. He kept things, scriptural and ethical. He was a man's man. He was a hardworking guy. In fact, my dad did not have the luxury of just being on salary with the church. There was virtually no money. So he worked an 8-hour job, a 40-hour a week job, and came in and would study and have a Bible study on Wednesday and preach on Sunday twice. And he would do house visitation. He did it all and worked a 40-hour job.
Wow.
And I have nothing but admiration for him. Nothing but admiration. No, I lost him. He died at 54 years old out here in Loma Linda, California, and was buried at the Veterans Cemetery. He was treated at Veterans Hospital and then buried on the hillside out here.
Okay.
So, but
was he a veteran?
But my experience so he was a Navy veteran, Okinawa. Okay. Yeah, quite a guy, military MP and a boxer. He was quite a man. Oddly enough, Aaron, my dad was not a musician. I think he liked to sing. And I can remember him leading song service before he would preach. He would come out and he'd say, what would you guys like to request? And he had like a request list, and people would call out of him and he would sing it and he would lead it. And my mom was the pianist for his church. Wow. So that's how I got into that. Yeah.
So when did you start playing piano?
I started the minute I hit soil in California. My grandma Olson, I come from a family of Swedes and Vikings. And my grandma Olson had a little organ in her house and it's called a chaplain's organ. It was small and portable. You could actually pick it up and carry it. And the Army used a version of that probably in camo green that they would set out in the field and have morning services. And it's a little pump organ. And I was just dying to try it. And I asked my mom, can I play that organ? She goes, yeah, it's a pump organ. You have to, put your feet on it. And she taught me one song, and that was it. I was in. And that was when I was about 5. Yeah, I was 5 years old.
What do you mean she taught you a song? The melody?
Yeah, she said, I can teach you one little song to get you started. I said, I'm ready. Let's do it. And she said, it's called Going Up, Going Down, See My Elevator. So it was 3 notes: C, D, E, D, C, C, D, E, D, C, C. That was it. That was my first song. And after that, I wrote my first full composition and wrote it out with notes because I was hooked. I was in. I'm going to be a songwriter, and that's what I'm going to do.
Wow. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't.
Yeah. So that is funny because I don't think we ever played chopsticks. I think that was going to be way too inside the box for my.
Sunday mornings after church, all the kids gravitate around this upright piano we have in the back, and it starts. Dun, 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 dun.
I know.
One kid playing harmony and somebody messing up.
I know.
I can do that.
And buddy,
you can't do that.
I was talking to I work with a guy named Kim Hutchcroft from Seawind, and he and I are the 2 keyboard players at the gig I have now. And I went to play the Steinway the other night. I got to sound check, and we just read charts. We don't do any rehearsing. We just read charts. And I went over, saw my charts, and went to lift the lid on the piano, and it's locked. And I said, I don't know what's going on here, but I can't get in the piano. And he said, yeah, we had to lock it because people sneak in during the day and pound on it. Same thing,
those
man.
darn kids, man. I know.
Yeah.
I know those kids. They're coming sneaking into church after school.
So lock it up.
Chopsticks.
Lock it up. That's right, man. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, my mom basically said, if you're serious about this, and she said that, she said, if you're serious about it, I will teach you or we'll get you lessons. And it'll probably be, for us, it was going to be on an organ. I don't remember why we chose the organ, but I was okay with that. And so they would buy nice instruments. My mom and dad were willing to fork out whatever it took to have a nice instrument in the home, whether it was a Kahn or a Gold-Branson or whatever, they would buy nice instruments. And my aunt was a songwriter, and she'd written hundreds and hundreds of hymns. And I think they were kind of modeling it after her because she would always have these big theater organs with 5 manuals and hundreds of stops. And she would turn the lights down and do shows at her house. And I think my mom, that's what she went off of was, well, she has this big Kahn organ that she has, so we'll get one of those, Wow. So the astounding thing is, one day my dad took me to the neighbors and he said, I want you to see this organ that this guy has. And it was a B3. Mm-hmm. And I sat down and he turned it on. I wouldn't have known how to even start up a B3, but he starts it up. And I sort of played a couple chords and I saw these drawbars. And my dad said, how would you like to have something like this instead? I went, oh, no. Oh no, that's too complicated. And I missed out. Dude, I missed out so big time at 12.
Yeah,
my dad would have got
your own B3 and a Leslie and everything.
I would have had my B3 at 12, 13 years old, and I would have had a head start. But no, it took years before I finally realized that that's where I needed to be. So
I had a moment like that. It wasn't with music though. It was in traveling. I remember once when I was 7 years old or 6 or 7, something like that. My dad went to Montreal, Canada for a union meeting. He worked at American Tobacco Company, and he was secretary of that chapter of the union.
Yeah.
And he was going to Montreal and it's taking my mom, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, no, I don't want to go. So I stayed with my cousins that week and got in all sorts of fights and just felt miserable. And then they come home with all these great photographs of mounted police and all this stuff. Man. It's oh, man, I missed it.
Well, you know what's crazy, man, and I've told a few people about this, but it doesn't come up very often. My dad loved to take me cool places, and I was always shocked because we would end up someplace and I'd be thinking, how are we even allowed to be here? So the first place I remember him taking to me was he took me to Johnny Cash's house. And we didn't go in, but I felt like my dad knew him. And it turns out my cousin worked for Johnny Cash. So we didn't go into the house at the time or anything, but my dad drove me all around Johnny's house there in Hendersonville. And I thought, wow, I've died and gone to heaven. There's Johnny's, driveway. There's his house. And he lives there. It was like the mid-60s. He had just bought that house. And the next thing, we go to Graceland. And my dad goes up to the gate and says, I'm going to ring the bell. So he rings the bell at Elvis Presley's house. And a guy comes down the driveway and meets us and said, can I help you? And my dad said, well, can we see the place? And the guy goes, you know what? Come on in. And, dude, I mean, I have to laugh because he opens the gate, the famous gates that are still there, right? Those steel gates. He lets the four of us in, my mom and dad and my brother and I, and he closes the gates and locks it. And then he says this, hey, we can go all around the property and I'll give you a grand tour, but I can't take you in the house because Elvis lives here.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, well, okay. We'll leave him alone then,
Right.
And so we go in the backyard and I'm checking out his cars and his motorcycles. He had chimpanzees and hound dogs. He had a little business office out there. And the next thing you know, we're sitting by the pool in his lounge chairs, taking pictures, me and my brother hanging out.
Wow.
At Graceland.
So you mean, are you telling me that Michael Jackson wasn't the only singer that had a monkey?
No, Elvis had chimpanzees. He did. Yeah, he had chimpanzees back there. I saw him.
Wow.
So, we had that. And then another time, I remember him taking me to the Grand Ole Opry, maybe 1960, 61. And we sat on the stage in the balcony. They aren't there anymore, these seats, but they look down over the stage from the balcony. So, I mean, you still have balconies there, but they're not on the stage. These were seats looking down on the stage. And I thought, my dad, how do you do this stuff? And there was usually some family connection or whatever, because I found out we're connected with, a lot of people in Nashville with the Loveless Cafe and
cool.
Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. Yeah, that's all tied in with the Scott family. So now I'm learning later that my dad was pretty well hooked up, and he was born in Nashville. So
I tell you what, next time you come to Nashville, it's me and you, Loveless Cafe, and it's on you.
I would so do that, man. It's awesome. Awesome breakfast out there. You never know who you're going to sit with.
You never know. I want to go back just
you never know who you're going to sit with either.
You said you had a cousin that worked for Johnny Cash.
He got my first cousin, Jerry Scott. He got in with Johnny Cash, wiring his house, working on his phones and all of his communication lines, and they became pals. So in the movie, when you see that Johnny Cash movie that was done so amazingly, and he's down on the hillside with a broken down tractor and he gets stranded. My cousin was up in his truck and he's yelling, Jerry, Jerry, to my cousin to come give him a ride back to the house. And that was there in the earlier mid 60s. Johnny still wasn't doing too well. He was still kind of messed up and hadn't really got his life together, but Jerry has all kinds of stories. He told me a story about Johnny would lose his temper and throw his phone in the lake. So he put 100-foot phone line on it so that he could reel it back out of the lake, back into the bedroom. right up there on the lake in Hendersonville. Yeah, right up by PBN there.
Wow. And he would reel it in and it'd still be good.
Reel it back in. Dry it out. Yeah, dry it out. The old dial type,
Wow.
Rotary phones.
I'm going to do a show with Kevin Max
in
a couple of weeks on that property.
Uh-huh. Oh, no, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. We've driven over there a lot and just parked and paid honor to Johnny because the house is gone. And it's really sad that house is gone and stuff, but that's just what happened. So anyway.
So you were never rebellious or anything? You just had smooth sailing right through adulthood.
Yeah, I really did, man. I got plugged in at church and I was a youth leader and I would always have bands and I would always be leading, different kinds of musical projects and stuff. And, I was locked in, and Aaron, truthfully, man, when you're young and you really do have an experience with God and it's a Holy Spirit experience, you seldom want to run away. What would you be running from? Why would you run from that? Loving friends, wonderful people. I grew up in the Assemblies of God church, and everybody was brother and sister. It's a little odd to think about now, but that's what we lived in. It was a world of people that cared about each other and, poured into each other,
Wow. So
there wasn't much.
Are you saying that the kids that grew up maybe in a pastor's home and rebelled, they really hadn't gotten it yet?
I don't think they locked in with what a real relationship with God is. I think people miss out on that deeper walk. I think it's one thing to say, man, I'm in church all the time, or wow, I know who Jesus is. That's all really great. And you know what? I love seekers. I'm all about people that are seeking. And if my pastor used to say this, many roads lead to Jesus, but only one road leads to God. And that gave me the chills when I thought of that people are seeking and seeking and seeking, and there's many roads. Hopefully one of those roads is going to lead them to Jesus. Once you're with Jesus, we know where that goes. That goes straight to God.
Yeah.
Right. But many people are on all these different roads, and I don't judge them, criticize them, or I'm not harsh on them. I just go, man, I'm so glad you're a seeker. I'm so glad you're a seeker, because you're at least one step above some people who have no foundation in their life,
That's true. God's in control, my friend.
Yeah, buddy. So, I walked that all through high school. I was involved in a lot of Christian music and stuff. And by the time I was 15, I had toured a little bit with my little band. By the time I'm 16, I'm really looking into what's going on in Christian music. I'm really watching to see what's going on, because we're just hearing the first 1968, 69. We're hearing the first Christian rock music from Larry Norman,
Right.
And we're going, wow.
Keith Green come along?
I'm not sure what year, but I discovered Keith Green by accident at church one night at Calvary Chapel in Riverside with Greg Laurie. Keith came and played. I don't think I discovered him till 75. Wow. And he came and played at Calvary Chapel, and he was so unique and so interesting. I never forgot him. And I thought, what? Wow, look at him. He's a songwriter and he's a piano player, but he's got this whole lively, exciting thing he does, and he's full, just full of the gospel. It's really amazing, But up until then, it had been Larry Norman and Love Song and some of these bands just experimenting, seeing what they could do, what they could get away with,
That's right. So, So did you have a formal music education?
Buddy, I tried. I color outside of the box so much that it was really hard to lock in with some of the teachers who were very strict and want you to practice scales. Yeah. I had a honky-tonk piano player that I liked because she understood the looseness of honky-tonk music, the sloppiness, the sloppiness and the slurred notes and the funny, odd progressions. And I did the honky-tonk thing for a while and thought, okay, I think I could actually handle some of this. And I think that's a direction that I'm going to incorporate into kind of an R&B thing. And by the time I really started playing keyboards, I'd had all of these influences, especially Leon Russell, especially, his thing, and going, well, that's what I like. There's what I like right there,
Yeah, that's cool.
And Billy Preston, and anything Billy Preston did. So
what about Dr. John?
Yeah, he's in there too. Same thing. Yeah. Leon I had a special heart for, and Billy too. And Billy was close friends with Andre, and I knew Andre, and I'd been around Andre a few times, and I knew that he and Andre grew up together.
That's Andre Crouch, right?
Yeah. So you've got Andre Crouch and Billy Preston at the same church when they were kids. Oh. And Andre spoke, and there's pictures of them as kids singing in choir and playing together. And like, man, did they ever have it going on, right?
Wow.
The two of them.
Never knew that.
Yeah, and then Billy probably broke away at a pretty early age. I'm thinking his probably earliest gigs were probably at 14 or 15, where he broke away from the church, was out on the road. I think he played with Ray Charles, if I remember right. So, yeah. So
did you ever play clubs and stuff? Did you ever go that route?
You know what? I love that because I did not do that until Bob Carlisle asked me to play clubs with him and a couple guys from California here. And it paid so little that it really wasn't worth it for the money, but it was fun to just play, you know? So we would have to drive an hour up to Big Bear or Lake Arrowhead or one of these places in the mountains and then play for 4 hours and then drive home and make $50.
Yeah.
So it sure wasn't a money thing, but to get to play with Bob Carlisle and a couple other amazing musicians, we would go up and just enjoy it. And I wasn't a drinker or anything, and the club thing didn't appeal to me, but I enjoyed the music. You know, enjoyed playing.
Did you? What sort of instrument did you take up there? You didn't take a B3.
Well, no. When I first started playing clubs with Bob Carlisle, I had my first synthesizer and a Rhodes piano. Mm-hmm. And that's all, that's all you needed. And now, of course, I have several tone clone Hammonds, but I still have my 1958 Hammond and Leslie sitting in the garage out here. So I have it and I can use it and I can record with it, but I'm not going to drag it around too much, so
that's cool.
I have stuff stored there in Nashville for gigs there. And I keep some really nice keyboards there in Nashville, and then I keep nice stuff here. And then I have amazing stuff to use at church that's provided for me. So there's plenty of gear now. And it's easy.
Where do you keep those nice keyboards?
Nobody's going to know. The Shadow do. Yeah. The Shadow do.
So you graduated from high school.
Yeah.
So you already had a band by the time you graduated from high school?
I had been playing with kids from church and singers and guitar players and bass players that I would meet, drummers, and none of them were pros, but they really loved to play. And I was learning slowly that I could do this. And one night I went to a Bible study, and here's all these guys on stage that I went to high school, and they had all come to the Lord. And I'm looking at the stage thinking, this can't be. What? And I'm looking at the drum major from the band, who was the band teacher's son. I'm looking at this other guy who was kind of an oddball drama guy I sort of knew. And here's this other guy. And I'm like, they're Christians and they're rocking. They're playing whatever they want to play at this Bible study. And I went up and I said, oh my gosh, what happened to you guys? And they go, oh man, he told me about Jesus. Then this guy told me, and then I told him, and we're a Christian band. You want to be in it? And I joined, thinking I was going to play trumpet, or guitar. And he said, oh, no, you need to be our keyboard player. We don't have a keyboard player, and we'll teach you. So
wow.
I literally went to the college on an old Rhodes piano and learned the set in the back room of a college classroom and learned the set so I could start playing that Saturday. And it was totally overwhelming because I could play just fine, but I was like, they gave me a solo, and I'm going, oh no, I don't want a solo. He goes, oh yeah, you got a solo in this honky tonk song. You got to play it. So I did it. Yeah, I did it.
What was the name
of that? And that was
band?
my first gig. That was called Sonrise. So that was with Randy Thomas, who went on to be in Sweet Comfort and Allies with me. And then a couple guys from high school, and my friend Steve Ladnation, he's there in Nashville too. He plays with a lot of country artists.
I see Stevie from time to time.
Yeah, he's my buddy. He's my oldest friend I have. We've been friends for about 60 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
He plays
and I just did a session with him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you were here.
Yeah, I just did a session with him for 3 days, and we had a blast. He did such a good job. He's just such a dear friend. But he plays mostly with Mark Colley.
Yeah,
the country artist Mark Colley.
He plays in a band with my next door neighbor, Matt Ryan, Matthew Ryan.
Oh, that's awesome. Sure he does. Of course he does. Yeah, I hear about that a lot.
Yeah, and they rehearse next door to me, and so I see him on breaks when they take a break. And if I'm outside,
he's my pal. He's my pal. Yeah, he's my pal, and he was in that band, so it was ready. And then Michael Hodge was a guy that I knew from another high school, and he's the band leader for Joel Osteen now. So he's the lead guitar player. Michael Hodge.
It's not Israel Houghton?
Well, he was with Israel for wherever Israel was. He was with him for a long time. So as a lead guitar player. I've kind of lost track of what's going on. Well, there's been some changes and things, but over the years, Michael was the guy that stood out front of the band and was MDing and lead guitar and played with all the guest artists. So if Israel was there too, Michael would play all the lead stuff.
Yeah.
I'm super proud of him. He's such a good guitar player. And
that's cool.
We're all about the same age, so.
That's cool.
But, yeah, so I watched those guys, Aaron. I was watching those guys going, so you're telling me you're a Christian. So you're saying you're a Christian. And they're like, oh, yeah, dude, this is a Christian band. That's what we do. We were a club band, and now we're a Christian band. And so I joined it. Yeah, and I jumped in with both feet, raring to go.
That's cool, man. What kind of places did you guys play?
Any church that would have us, anywhere we could go. We would go to the park and play with Barry McGuire. We would go to the local park and play on a truck bed. We would play at a Bible study. We didn't really care. Some of them didn't pay. Some of them paid as much as like $300. And, we thought we were rich to get paid for a gig. There were coffee houses too, like a place called the Fire Escape and some places in Orange County. Calvary Chapel was starting to come around and accepting a little more rock in the church and stuff. And we probably did some things with Calvary Chapel and things like that.
What year was this?
That's the band that, so 73.
73. Wow.
Yeah, 73. And then Matthew Chapman joined. We went up and picked him up north, drove my little Mazda pickup there and up there. And we picked up Matt and probably some music gear and brought him back. And Matt joined the band. Yeah,
he was up in Napa, right?
Yeah. Angwin, California, right above Napa, near Napa. So.
Yeah.
And, that guy has promoted and encouraged me for 45 years. Promoted, encouraged, built up, been there for me, been in bands with me, band after band after band.
Well, so, that's part of Matthew's, that's part of Matthew's title, encourager.
Yeah, bridge builder, I call him. He's a bridge builder. Yep.
Yeah, he is.
You got it. So he knows that I believe in him and that, I appreciate that relationship.
Yeah. And, Matt's been on this program. So if anybody wants to know who we're talking about, you just go to that episode.
That's awesome.
That features Matthew Chapman.
And dude, he has such a history. He has such a history of stuff that nobody would know about because he doesn't talk about it a lot, but he's played with so many bands and been there in a lot of different styles. And he did a lot of hired gigs out here in California, working for churches and different things. Pretty much anything he could say yes to, he did, Really did. And we're still playing together. We have a band in Nashville called Smoke Wagon, and we play live there. So doing blues stuff. Yeah, so we're doing
Smoke
that
Wagon?
too. We got that going. Yeah, Smoke Wagon. So that little theme that you played at the beginning of the show is pretty much tied into the band that we're doing, which is Jimmy Erickson on drums and Matthew and myself and my friend J.P. Robinson on guitar. Little 4-piece blues band. So we do that a couple times a year. Yeah, really fun. The Lord is good, man. The Lord's really good to us.
So you gigged around California with these guys, playing churches and Bible studies and what was your next venture?
Well, I started meeting some people and started getting out there a little bit more. Met Andre Crouch and a lot of the guys I knew from church. They all joined Andre's band. And that would open up new opportunities, either helping them or hanging out a little bit or being in a band where maybe some of the more professional guys have been. And I did that. I jumped up to the next level, which was another band called Psalm 150. And they had been working with Andre Crouch and I'd already recorded 2 records, and the second album was produced by Andre. So that's how I ended up meeting Andre and going to his house and spending some time there. And it was an awesome time. Still not knowing at 22 years old, what I was going to be doing exactly. But I knew I was a songwriter and I knew I could play. And fortunately, there were bands in Orange County that were really solid that were based out of Calvary Chapel. And when I would get a call from Orange County, I knew it was going to be one of the Maranatha bands probably, and that would be either Chuck Butler or Daryl Mansfield or somebody down there. And they would need players. They'd have somebody quit or on vacation, and so I started subbing and helping out a little bit. Not a lot. I did more with Daryl Mansfield than I did with Parable, which was Chuck Butler's band. But these were the early days of Christian rock, and there were actually a lot of gigs. Calvary Chapel was doing long tours. We'd go all the way up to Seattle from California and drive and
take
tour.
a bunch of groups.
Yeah, well, sometimes just the one band, and we would play parks and Calvary chapels all the way up and down the coast, and then come back, and you could actually do pretty well, you know.
You know, we used to do that,
go ahead.
We used to do that at Warehouse Ministries. We had a concert every other Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I remember right, was that in Sacramento or a different warehouse?
No, Sacramento. Yeah.
Yeah, because we played there with Daryl Mansfield. I remember being there.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember being there. That would have been 78. So that was kind of a transition period for me because I wasn't quite sure that I wanted to be in an Orange County band, which was basically an hour away. But, you know, you go where the music is, and enjoyed the ministry and liked the guys. And it was always something different. You know, I got to play a little bluegrass and a little bit of country and a little bit of rock. And I was kind of building my chops and learning how to play. So you just kind of hang in there and play and tour and enjoy it while you can, while you got it, you know.
Right.
So, you know, by then we're into 78, 79, my dad passes, and I'm starting to think I want to do something. So I go after a record deal with my band. And I'm thinking, I think I can get a deal. I'm pretty sure the songs are good. And sure enough, I got a deal with a Beverly Hills label, and I went to sign it. And when I went to sign, another guy got involved who was kind of in it for the money and was trying to kind of wedge in there and get a part of the action and ruin the deal for me.
Oh, no.
So I was pretty disillusioned because I had the record deal. I actually had a couple different possibilities, and both of them fell through at the last minute. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I had been to Holland and played a little bit in Europe, and I thought, I'm just going to move away and I'm going to go do something different. And so I moved, and I went to Holland, and I started a band there, and I worked part-time, and I just enjoyed being in Europe. I don't know. It was just something different that you can do when you're young, you know.
So you wrote a your first successful worship song. What was that, and was that before or after Holland?
Oh, what a pleasure to talk about. 1976 or so, I came in from a church camp late one night, all alone, parked in the church parking lot, walked through the side door, went over to the piano, and for some reason, my fingers just fell on these notes, and I started singing, I Want to Praise You, Lord. And I remember it came so easy. I sang, I want to praise you, Lord, much more than I do. And I thought, oh, I like that. And as I was writing it there at the piano in the dark, I thought, well, this is coming really easy. I think I'll finish this up. So I finished this whole song called I Want to Praise You, Lord. And actually it was done in a kind of a big production with horns and Hammond organ and stuff. And we recorded it in LA. It was done and in the can. And it was part of my demo tape that I was using to get a record deal. And my friend Randy Thomas heard it, and he said, you know what, I think I can get that recorded with Maranatha. Do you mind if I write on it? And I said, go ahead, do what you want. So he wrote a girl's part to it, which became really famous. The girls would sing, birds in the sky, sing their songs to you, trees in the field, lift their wings to you. Well, that really kicked in. The people liked that, and they liked, especially Calvary Chapels, they liked those songs. They were singable, memorable, and there was a boy and a girl part, and they loved singing them. So they cut it immediately, and then it got cut like 60 more times.
60?
All over the world. 60.
Really?
I mean, the licenses were just pouring in to record it in Spanish and in Italian and in German, and they were doing string versions of it and instrumental. It just, I was like astonished because I never expected that to happen off a little worship song you're just playing in the dark at church, you know.
I got to ask you a question that James Brown used to ask his band members. Did you have your business together?
So I knew nothing about the songwriting business. I knew nothing about anything other than somebody would call and say, hey, we heard this song. I remember you would hear the voice on the other line. You were trying to figure out who it was. Hey, this is Bob down at so-and-so Records in L.A. We're listening to your cassette, and we really like this third song on here, blah, blah, blah. And you're so full of adrenaline and excitement because somebody likes what you do,
right, that
you can hardly talk. And unfortunately, at that point, you have a decision to make, which make good business decisions based on nothing that you know about, or just saying yes. or just saying, yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. And so back in those days, licenses would come in the mail and you would sign it away and then later find out that your song that you wrote and demoed and promoted and played live is now on a record, but you're only getting how much? 25% now.
Yeah.
And 75% is going to 3 other entities, whether it's publishing, another writer. So you learn really quickly that, wow, if I'd been more careful, I probably could have had 50% of that song. Probably not more than that, but I could have. But at some point, especially in a relationship with the Lord, you have to just let it go. And you go, hey, man, thank you. Gratefulness rules. Mm-hmm. So gratefulness is saying, I'm so thankful I had that moment. I'm so thankful that happened. I am not going to be bitter. I'm not going to wish that it was different. I just going to accept. And the Lord will bless that. And he did. Blessed it greatly.
Great. Man, that's great.
So,
story.
So the wonderful thing was I had basically that, what you can call that a hit. It did really well. And I'm kind of flying high thinking, wow, this is possible. You can make money at this. And the next thing I know, Sweet Comfort Band is needing songs. So I started writing things for them. And I had 2, maybe 3 cuts with Sweet Comfort. And I thought, man, I love this. I've got this great band out there. They're recording wonderful albums at great studios. And those are my, some of my lyrics and a lot of my music,
Mm-hmm.
And it was very rewarding. And then, very rewarding.
Was
exciting.
Sweet Comfort, was Sweet Comfort after you came back from Holland?
That was way back. They started they had been together for a long time and started recording a lot around 76. Mm-hmm. 76. And I didn't go to Holland until 1980. So when I went to Holland, here's the deal with that. When people ask me, how did you do that? Well, I had songwriter royalties coming in. Yeah. So I'm getting these checks from ASCAP and from publishing companies. And I'm thinking, it's not a lot. There's nothing to brag about, but it's enough to pay your rent. And it's enough for gas money and for the train and the bus. So I would just take all of my royalty checks and put them in the bank in Holland. And I would draw out as little money as I could. And in another 3 months, I'd get another check. So I lived on that for almost 2 years, just, enjoying the fruits of my labor. And meanwhile, still writing and still playing and working a little part-time job there in Holland. And I got by. I sure didn't have a lot of money. Oh, I was a picture framer. I worked in a workshop building picture frames. Cool. Yeah. And I worked with a Dutch guy there, and it was enough money to pay, it gave me some spending money. So
did you learn the language?
Yeah. I went to school. I went to the Air Force Base there and learned enough basic Dutch to get by with, so that when I went shopping and hanging out, I could at least try to speak Dutch. And people say I did pretty well at it. I still wish I would have been more serious about it. But
so how did you put the band together?
A lot of fun. Oh, that was another thing. I started calling around and asking for musicians, and somebody said, well, who you need to talk to is this drummer at the conservatory. He's amazing, and he would probably love to play with you. So I would call him, and I'd say, where do you live? And he'd say, Rotterdam. And I go, well, I live in Utrecht. It's about an hour away. Would you like to meet sometime? So the drummer and I would meet. Then he'd bring along a bass player, and the bass player said, hey, I know this guitar player. And I ended up with this amazing group of guys who were really good. And they'd never worked with Americans before and had that kind of laid back, cool LA sound. Mm-hmm. So we worked on simplifying what they play and playing more of the groove and playing a little more of the Steely Dan feel and getting away from classical. And it was a challenge, but they loved it. They said it was some of the happiest, funnest musical moments of their life, working with a guy from LA.
Wow.
And whatever gigs we could do, we rehearsed in my living room. I had a big house out in the country, and we rehearsed in my living room, and we played wherever we could play.
Mm. You had a big house and wrote in Utrecht?
You know what I did? I had an apartment in Utrecht, and a guy called me. His last name was Cold Ice, and it's pronounced Koud Ice in Dutch, but his last name was Cold Ice. Mm. And he said, would you like to have a house out in Barneveld, Holland? It's about a 45-minute drive from Utrecht. And I said, wow, sure. And he goes, it's just sitting there. How about give me $100 a month for it? And I had my own house.
So why did he call you? I mean, how did he
come to
call you?
He must have heard at church that this American was living in Utrecht and could use a place, and he gave me the house. And so I would send him $100 a month, and I lived there, and we had band practice there. And I had more house than you could ever want. And nobody in Holland has houses like that. Most people live in little apartments, little houses. Wow. So, and a guy gave me a car. This guy called me and said, "Do you need a car?" And I said, "I would love a car." He says, "There's one out in the canal if you want to get it out of the water." And I said, "What canal?" And he goes, "There's a canal out behind the church in the woods. And if you can get that Renault out of the water, you can have it." And I went out and I got in it, and the key was in it, and I turned the key and it started, and I drove it out of the canal up the riverbank.
Wow. Really?
And drove off. And I drove off in this car going, "Okay, I got a car." So, yeah.
Wow.
So it just came together, and I ended up working with Youth for Christ there and hanging out, doing a lot of writing. Some of the writing I did there became Allies songs, because when I came back from Holland, we started Allies, and I just took those same things I'd been working on for 2 years and thought, this will make a good Allies song. I'll show it to Bob Carlisle, and we would write it,
Mm-hmm. Man, that's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
So what eventually brought you back to the States? I mean, it sounds like you had it going pretty well in Utrecht.
Yeah. You know what? It always sounds good, but behind the scenes, you're struggling because you're an American in a foreign country, and you don't have a lot of money, and you're thinking, I'm homesick. I think I want to be back talking English all the time, and I want to have a career, and I certainly want to have more success in music. And my dream was to have a great band. So when my friend Randy Thomas was leaving Sweet Comfort and he said we could have a band, I heard it with both ears, and I went, yes, we can. And it was within, it only took like a couple of weeks before I was playing with Bob Carlisle. And I thought, I need to do something with Bob besides play clubs. And he called me one night and said, "Hey man, I'm really struggling. I want to get out of bar world. I hate this. Do you know of any ideas?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "If you want to get out of bars, why don't you join our band? We're going to have this band and we need you, and you're the guy." And he said, "Okay, I'll do it."
Was he a believer at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And he'd been singing with Psalm 150, one of the bands I'd been in, and he'd been singing on my demos. We'd been hanging out in my garage. He liked to come over and just hang out in the garage with me, and I was working on my car, and we'd become really good friends, and he liked it when I'd come over and watch Letterman with him late at night. And I thought, well, you know what? This is a perfect fit because he's the best singer I know of in L.A. He's one of the top session singers there is. He was singing with everybody. He was at all the vocal sessions, and he needed something, and we needed him. So we started the band, and we signed a record deal within about a week or two, if I remember right. Yeah.
So tell me, have you kept up with the guys that were in your band in Utrecht?
You know what? I have actually stayed in touch with all of my buddies there in a Facebook sort of way. I occasionally get to see one or two of them when I go over there. We'll have a little reunion party, and they're all doing great. They were all conservatory guys, and they all got to play. My guitar player was working with Linda Ronstadt, and bass player was teaching at the conservatory. They're just solid, beautiful, Dutch guys that grew up playing classical and training really hard and working really hard so that they could teach and stay in music. It's a different thing than here, but it's their world,
So you guys have a lot of success with your new band
with the guys,
Allies.
Yeah, so Allies did really well. Yeah, Allies did really well, and we got that first record done really quick and mixed and mastered and out there. And of course, we were still carrying product, still carrying vinyl. We would have 20 boxes of vinyl in the motorhome when we're driving to a gig. And I think the first night we had our records, we must have sold 800 records one night. It was ridiculous. It was like, how many? And Bob's just laughing. He's going, I don't even know what to do with all these $10 bills, because I think records were $10 then. And it seems to me like T-shirts were, 10 and records were 10. And we went through like boxes and boxes and boxes of records. And I said, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "Yeah, everybody wanted the album. Everybody wanted to hear it." So now you have product, and that is the basis for being a success on the road anyway, is T-shirts and records and CDs and hats and whatever you can get your hands on, because you're not going to make it without some product. You're not going to. It's too hard.
Nobody makes it these days without product.
Oh, product is key, and of course the record business has changed so much that the money isn't there like it used to be. But back then, you could make it if you had vinyl and good products that people want to walk away with, and they would enjoy the concert and then go home with something. So, you know, it was a great time. We're talking 84 and 85.
Yeah, Sam, I know you got a lot of music history there in L.A. as well, and you know all these really good players who just play with top-notch people.
Wonderful people.
Yeah,
wonderful.
That's really great.
Well, yeah, and I have to kudos to my friend Kim Hutchcroft, who is still in Seawind whenever Seawind does something, but he worked with Quincy Jones for, I don't know if it's 30 years, and Kim and I are on the worship team together, and I get to play and have fellowship with guys who have been around, done it, and they're walking with God, close in relationship. They minister you, encourage you, pray over you, and they've seen and done it all.
Yeah.
You have too.
Yeah.
They've seen things and they've done things, and they love to tell their stories, but when it comes right down to it, here they are sitting in church with you, worshiping the Lord. So
I have a World Series MVP that's a deacon at our church, and it's amazing to watch him serve communion. You know, it's like, wow.
Yep. I know.
That's a real man.
I know. So, and I remember visiting church on the way back when I was first married, and there was Michael O'Mardian taking the offering or serving communion, him and Stormy. They were serving communion at church on the way, and then I would look over and hear somebody else and hear somebody else. I thought, how cool is that? See all these famous faces, and they're all in church with you worshiping on Sunday. Yeah. Wonderful.
So, Sam, we're running down towards the end of our time here, and I just want you to let people know what you're doing today, if you got any websites or any sort of social media information you want to give out.
Yeah. What a blessing. Yeah. So when I came back to California and got married out here, which we've been married for 5 years now with my lovely wife, Marcia, she told me to start saying yes to everything. She said, honey, I want to encourage you to start saying yes to things. When somebody calls you for a gig out in the desert, say yes, go do it. See if you like it. If you don't like it, you can always close that door. So I started saying yes, and I went and I started playing out in the desert at Palm Springs, Palm Desert, Rancho Mirage, and these places, and it was a lot of fun. I met some great people. The time came for that to close down, and my friend James Felix, who used to be with Andre Crouch, had called me to work with him at a church startup. I said yes. I hung in there and worked with him for probably 8 months until the time where I felt like, I don't know if my heart's in it. And he said, hey, I got something for you. And he got me a job at Calvary Chapel as the main keyboard player there, playing mostly piano and a lot of synth. And it's a staff position. It pays. And he wrote a letter to Kim Hutchcroft and said, hey, I got a guy for you if you need it. And one thing just led to another. And the next thing you know, I've been there for 4 years playing piano and doing
cool. And which Calvary Chapel is this?
So that's called Calvary Chapel of Redlands. They call it the Packing House. It's huge. It's basically on the grounds of the old orange packing house where they used to pack oranges in the mornings, and they've expanded, and now they have big concerts. A lot of the big concerts for the Inland Empire here in San Bernardino area are at the Packing House because they have a beautiful facility. So
that's great.
We're very spoiled in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you're there every Sunday?
You know what? The way they do with a lot of us guys is every 2 weeks you play, and that gives other people a chance because we have so many professional musicians that come and go and are around that are really good, so they give everybody kind of a chance. But when you go on staff there, you're signed up as a position to play every 2 weeks for a Saturday and a Sunday, play all weekend. And then I also sometimes sit in with some of the guest musicians and help out where I can, with that too. So,
tell me something. Is my brother Raul Reese still preaching?
Oh, man, I think so, and I haven't seen him for years. I'm trying to think the last time I saw him. I don't know if he's stopped by the church there before or not, so I don't know the answer to that. But I'll tell you who I do see is a lot of vintage Christian guys, Bob Bennett, Paul Clark, pretty much all the guys that were out there in the 80s that were cranking out album after album and had all the radio airplay. They are our regular guests there. We do 52 artists a year.
Wow.
So every Sunday there's a guest artist. So you never know who's going to be there. It's crazy. Yeah. I even did something with Bob Carlisle last year. We did a trio, the Bob Carlisle trio with me and Bob and a bass player. So we just, you just never know about us.
Bob was just here the other day. last week.
Yeah, what
or
was,
a week before last?
was that the big show with a lot of artists, or?
I don't know, but he went by to see Rick Elias, and I was over at Rick Elias' house yesterday, and
nice.
I saw his photograph on the refrigerator.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. Yeah, Rick's a good guy, and I haven't talked to Bob in a few weeks here, and I need to stay in more. We live about an hour from each other. I do all the work on his house, but I haven't been down there for a while, so I have to catch up with him one of these days. But so we're all in touch.
He's not in Vegas anymore, huh?
No, Bob actually has his parents' place in Santa Ana, California.
Okay.
His mom and dad are passed. And they live there in Santa Ana, and he loves it. He loves the air. He loves the surroundings, and I think he's real happy to be in Santa Ana, California. So
cool.
It's been really good.
Great.
Still has, as far as I know, he still has his house and studio up there in Vegas, but not really doing much with that. So.
Well, man,
all good, buddy. Yeah,
it's all good. It's great. I'm glad you could be on the show today, and I pray that you can have continued joy and fulfillment at Calvary Chapel, and all the things that you do. Come and see me when you come to Nashville. Call me up, and let's get a call.
Well, we have barbecues at Matthew Chapman's all the time, so we'll be doing that on the deck there.
But
won't be too long.
He's got to tell me you're going to be there.
But we will have some fun. Only I'll make you play. You know that. Well, all the gears are going to be there. The PA's there. We just need you to come sit in. So we're going to be fine
with that. I'm good with that.
We'll have a good time.
I'll do it.
All right,
I'll
buddy.
do it next time for sure.
All
so
right.
what are you doing the rest of the day?
Good to talk to you.
What are you doing the
I have
rest
to
of the
go
day?
back to work. I've got a meeting. I've got to go back to work. So that's just the way it goes.
Well, thank you.
So thank you,
God
man.
bless
I
you.
really enjoyed it.
All right,
buddy.
cool, man.
God bless your show. All right.
See ya.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. Pitbullaudio.com.